Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you like this podcast, you will love my new anthology called Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids. Check it out, and you'll hear from 49 authors about all sorts of things moms don't have time to do. All the authors have been on this podcast. Also, check out my TikTok @with Zibby and Tracy, my other podcast, Sex Talk with Zibby and Tracy. Check out Moms Don't Have Time to Write on Medium. And of course, my new publishing company called Zibby Books. And now back to our daily author interview site and a quick hello from some of my kids. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Enjoy the show. Nancy Balbirer is the author of Almost Romance, a memoir. Nancy wrote and performed the critically acclaimed solo show, I Slept with Jack Kerouac, reoccurred on both Remote Control and Seinfeld, and annually stars as a rotating bevy of floozies in Charles Busch's cult classic Times Square Angel. She is the author of the memoirs Take Your Shirt Off and Cry and A Marriage in Dog Years. She lives in Los Angeles with her family. Welcome, Nancy. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss Almost Romance, a memoir.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here and great to meet you, Zibby.
It's great to meet you too. Okay, tell listeners what your memoir is about.
Okay. Almost Romance is a memoir which tells the story of the 32-year almost romance I shared with one of my dearest friends and how we were able to turn it into a real romance with the help of the Grace and Frankie Writers' Room and the denizens of a fabled but cursed Manhattan apartment building. It's a real-life romantic comedy.
Love it. So back up, and I want you to talk about like how you even got here, because your acting and all that career started early. And I saw on Instagram your little clip, which is so funny of you like kissing. And anyway, so go back and talk about how you got into like, where did you grow up? How did you get into acting and writing? And just like take me from the beginning, because the memoir, of course, is like towards the second half more. But
well, it actually, yes, but it does traverse 32 years.
Right.
You do get a little hit of the acting career as well, because that's how Howie, my romantic hero, and I met. We met at NYU Tisch Drama School. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut. And I was born in New York, grew up in a small town in Connecticut, and I acted from the time I was a child as a child performer, and went at 17 back into New York to go to NYU, which is where as I said, I met Howie. And I was an actress, and I did television, I did stage, did a little film. And what happened was, and I thought that this was it. I mean, this was my career. It was my love. It was my passion. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And then one day I went into an audition for a project called the Untitled Luke Perry Project. And for some reason, despite that title, I was stunned to see Luke Perry sitting behind the audition table, that like flash dancey audition table. And despite the fact that I'd been with very others, much even more starry people in other rooms, this rattled me because I don't know. I just had an off day. And the feedback that my manager or agent gave me at the time was that I had bored Luke Perry. And this made her drop me. Yes. And I was 31 years old or something like that, knocking around Hollywood and newly married in my first marriage. And I did not know what I was going to do. And at that time, there was no cute things like YouTube or, Instagram, where you could just put yourself out there as the kids do now. So the only thing that you could do to procure other representation was to get into a show. So I had to write myself a show, which was called I Slept with Jack Kerouac, which was about a jazz musician. This was a true story. A jazz musician I had dated and fallen madly in love with, and who dumped me because he said he was the reincarnation of Jack Kerouac, and as such couldn't be in a committed relationship. I know. I have a talent for getting pretentious dudes. Anyway, so I wrote this play, and it was true. It was a solo show, and I performed it. And what happened in the process was it was a success. But I fell in love, surprisingly, at least to me, with writing. And it began my writing career. And as my writing career started to become more fulsome, I had less and less interest in the acting part. When I got pregnant with my daughter, I realized, because I had all this time to kind of just reflect, and at that time I was just doing voiceover work because I was heavily pregnant, I realized that the truth of it was that my favorite, when I got very, very honest and quiet with myself, that my favorite part of acting was the storytelling part, was being a part of the story, and certainly the connection with the audience. And after that, I just couldn't imagine going back to acting, not in the way that I had been doing it. You know, acting, the day-to-day of being an actress is not actually acting. You're, going around from audition to audition saying, pick me, like me, whereas writing, even if you don't have a publishing contract, you can be writing. Mm-hmm. You can be, you can be trying to achieve that. And it just really, when I started doing it, it was just so clearly the right fit, the right relationship for me, my relationship to that career, So I think a lot of the themes in my life are about finding the right fit for myself. And sometimes that doesn't happen in the 30 under 30 category, So
yes, it's hard because when you're under 30, you're still changing. So whatever fits, right? It's like it might not continue to fit if you're still morphing yourself. So
yes, and then there's also the attendant pressure that comes with that. It's like, oh well, I've set myself up for this thing. I must stay in this thing. If you achieve something in it, it's part of our culture a little bit. Americans really want you to have an idea of who you are, and you stick with that thing. Like you go to one college and you have to know what your major is, and it's all very linear. And I just don't know that it's always linear for everybody.
Definitely wasn't linear for me.
No, it wasn't. You're a perfect example of that.
Linear is overrated. Who needs it?
It's no, I believe in serpentine, circuitous.
Yeah, why not? What's that song? Like, God bless the winding road that led me straight to you, or whatever. Can apply to
The Long and Winding Road, Beatles.
Yeah, that too. Yes, of course. Okay, so tell me then about your first two books, which look so good, and now I have to go back and read those.
My first book, Take Your Shirt Off and Cry, is actually a memoir chronicle of my acting career and what I learned being in the blistering trenches of show business as a near fame performer, but not a famous performer. And really, it's also very much a deep dive and exploration of what it is to be a woman actor. And this is years before, it was very avant-garde for the time, because pre-Me Too, pre-Harvey Weinstein revelations, pre all of that. But I certainly had some stories in there. And again, my sort of take on things is humor largely, but it's not all humor. It's not like I'm a stand-up, so it's just all that kind of funny all the time stuff. It's got some gravitas to it. So that's what that book's about. And then A Marriage in Dog Years is a memoir of the year I tried to save my dog and my first marriage. And it goes from one Independence Day to the next. My dog was dying, but I didn't know it at the time. And my marriage was dying. And I also didn't know that at the time. And they were very deeply intertwined because we'd gotten the dog as a sort of marital wedding gift to each other. So many couples do that when they get married, not necessarily ready for the baby yet, but let's do something that needs our taking care of. And so that's what that's about. And it's an exploration of loss and grief, but most significantly, it's about surrender and how I'd always believed that surrender was giving up. When there is letting go, but there's a great deal of wisdom and strength in doing so. And I had to go through a lot to learn that. And yeah, so that's what that's about.
And then for this memoir, when did you know that you had to write about this? Or did you kind of know in the back of your head, starting at the very first meeting, that you write in the scene where you're like, but I feel that way too. So when did you know it was a book?
I had an inkling when we got married. The New York Times did one of their vows columns, and that comes out in the style section on Sundays. And we got this super intense response to it from people we knew, but also from people that we didn't. And in fact, the first time I ever met Jane Fonda was at the season 2 Grace and Frankie premiere party. And when my husband introduced me to her, she said, "Oh my God, I just read the vows column." And she was, in one hand, she was holding her Coton de Tuileries dog, and in the other, a rolled up copy of the vows. And she was like, "I had to bring it to Lily because it made me cry." I was like, "What? This is the first thing that you're saying when I meet you?" I mean, it was insane. So I thought, wow, people kept saying, "Well, I really love this story." And I thought, it's so nice, but it's so not the whole story, because how could you get the whole story into a column? There's all this, the nuance and the back and forth of it all. So cut to a couple of years later, A Marriage in Dog Years had just come out, and Carmen Johnson, my editor, and I were sitting down to lunch at the Breslin bar, and over some very delicious Caesar salads, because they are truly sublime there, she said, "What do you want to do next?" And I said, "Well, I was thinking that, remember the story in that vows column?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "I think that can make for a very interesting memoir, because it's actually a super happy story, but there's a lot of back and forth in it, and certainly painful times, but it's by and large a very uplifting, hopeful, joyous story. And not typical romantic comedy, because it deals with people who are pushing 50 or have just crossed over the line of 50, So she said, "Listen, I love that story, but what makes it a book and not a column?" And so totally extemporaneously, because she asked me that question and I had to answer it, I had to answer it for myself as well. And right there in the Breslin, I just was able to pitch it out to her. I saw it completely. I saw that it was in 3 parts. I saw that it started with this email that I wrote to him, and that would be the prelude. I knew exactly what the first line would be, sitting in the Russian samovar. It was just so clear to me. And at the end of it, she said, "Yeah, it's a book." Then, of course, I had to go write it. So that's a whole other thing. But that's how I knew.
And as we talked about before, Carmen Johnson is also my editor at Little A for my memoir. And I am just over the moon, just could not say enough nice things about her. She's so great.
She is so wonderful. And the whole process, having been through it with a different company and going through now 2 books with Little A, it is night and day in the way they do things, the model of it all. You are so much more empowered, and I'm really happy for you, because they're fantastic, especially Carmen.
Amazing. Okay. So then you went and wrote it. So tell me, what was that like?
Well, the book was mostly written during the very darkest days of the pandemic, the beginning of the lockdown. And writing is always navigating the challenges of particularly if you're a mom and a wife and you've just got other things going on. It's always hard to navigate all the things that you have, all the things you're juggling. And then when you add into that mix the fact that your writing space is now being taken over by Zoom High School and by husband's Zoom writer's room, and comedy writers are loud people. So, and then the dog barking at the extra Amazon deliveries. It made for a soup that was really, really thick and not the easiest. And then you compound all of that with the ADD of it all, what's going to happen today, and just being completely freaked out and afraid about, all of the things that were going on, the civil unrest, the pandemic, the political unrest, all of it made for something that was really hard to do. But when I finally was able to actually bring my attention to this time that I'm writing about, the present day of the time that's the present day in the book. And I was able to be once again with Howie in that glorious moment when we realized, oh my God, it's always been you. Or when I was able to swim in the pool of the past with my extraordinary neighbors at London Terrace Gardens and be with them again. Or my delightful daughter, Boo Boo Bear, when she was the adorable 8 and 9-year-old that she is in the story, I found that it was such a tremendous escape for me to be able to be there, that it became this joy to write it, to tell this story to other people who might need hope or an escape.
Yes. Anything that can get you through all of that is, I love that you just described it as a thick soup to get through. That's like, I love that visual. Yeah. I think I called it like a slog. I'm more like in like a Tough Mudder competition, where like you're on your, like you're going through sludge, but like a nice bowl of soup. That sounds much better. So I'm going to go
there's so many ingredients and it's like everything's been dumped into it. It's like how to parse this. Mm-hmm. What is the thing that's making it difficult? I mean, I'd have these Zoom therapy sessions and, be going through with my shrink, like, what am I doing? I have to concentrate. I have to focus. And so I was, I had to get a delay. I had to get an extension. But, the slowdown of that also, the slowdown of life and the slowdown, I think really gave me something that I actually needed in my creative process. I think what comes also from acting for me is this need to be liked and to be a good girl and get everything right. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily serve your work or the project. I needed to take a little bit more time, and that was okay, actually. It was fine.
That's good. So this feels very cinematic, Nancy Meyers movie-esque. Is there news of an adaptation yet? Are you working on that, or?
We are working on that. And I say we because this is a project that my husband and I are very excited to adapt together. And we've already started that process. So we will see. There was this new newsletter that's part of the Ankler, and it's called The Optionist. And it was just selected for that just a couple of days before it was published. It just came out 2 days ago. And a couple of days before that, he selected it as a book that he said, Meryl, call your agents. I loved it. It's really so great.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I have to start following that, The Optionist.
Oh yeah, it's brand new and it's super cool.
Oh, okay, done. Yeah, I'm always interested in what's going on. I feel like not that I'm always the best judge, but I don't know, some books I'm just like, I have to be with these characters again in another way. They're just calling out for more airtime or brain time or whatever it is.
Yeah, I have been hearing that from a lot of readers DMing me that, like saying, saying that they just can't seem to let go of these people. It's such an extraordinary feeling because, I have this thing where I feel the reader is very present for me. Again, that might come from the theater, but there isn't a word in anything I write, but especially this book, that hasn't been read aloud by me. like everything is read aloud because I want the reader to feel like we're together and we're friends and I'm telling you this story that you're kind of not going to believe, but here it is.
Well, that's the best way to experience it. Obviously there are different types of books and some are there for the form and function, but to just get a good story, that's really what everybody's dying for a good story. They want to escape, like you writing into your, people just need that, especially now. So when you have a good one, you have to do it, which is awesome.
For sure.
I also think that there's a real lack of narratives about women of a certain age or couples of a certain age. And this is, I feel like there's a huge spotlight on this empty stage area, if you will, where people should be standing and we're just like, where are the characters? Like, what's going on? Because so many people are going through so much stuff that is not being written about or thought about, so much divorce, so many people meeting up again later. There's so much opportunity. I think that people are able to see themselves in your writing and feel very understood and validated that they aren't getting from other places.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a huge void in where are the women who are approaching 50 because they, and this is why, and just like that, there are some, but it's a very small amount and we need to see more representation of this. People, as I believed, that love was a parade that had passed me by. And I wasn't mad at that. I was like, okay, I had that in my life. I've been through the mill, love and relationship wise. And, I had a very full life. I was a single mother. I had a career. I had a wonderful community, but it's all very nice, but not very good. And I think that people really need to know about their potential, their tremendous potential for love and for joy, and how that goes on past whatever expiration date you believe in. We have all these, the messaging is all about age defying. It's like, what about age embracing? What about, being a person whose sexiest decade is yet to come, or most fulfilling decade is yet to come, and I think especially women need to hear that and to know that that is true. And if I can be a part of shedding light on that or pulling the curtain back on that, I couldn't be more psyched.
I couldn't agree more. That's amazing. So what is next? Are you going to do another memoir? What are you thinking? Aside from the adaptation? I gravitate toward memoir. I do, but I have some ideas for fiction, and it's not, I see these things as very, you employ the same toolbox techniques as a memoirist as you do a fiction writer, and vice versa. People in fiction, my husband uses things I say all the time on his shows, and so, but I have some ideas of things that have been occurring to me lately that I need to explore. So I think there might be a novel or some short stories. I'm also obsessed with short story and would like to explore some of that as well. That sounds amazing. Love it. What advice would you give for an aspiring writer?
Never give up. Never give up. And, something that I have to do, this is 3 books later. I still am afraid somebody's going to find out I didn't go to school for writing or say, oh, she's just a dumb actress. How could she write something? So I have to trick myself. And this is what everybody should do if they think, if they're plagued with performance anxiety around writing or feeling like, too self-critical. I do a thing when I'm beginning any project, including this book, where I begin in the notes app on my phone or laptop, and I write there because the inner critics can't find me. And so I write there for a long time until I have enough that I can cut and paste it into a Word document, and I know that I'm off to the races. do whatever you need to do to trick yourself into, I'm not writing, I'm just jotting, whatever it is, dictate it to yourself, whatever it is, just don't give up. When you have a story to tell, you must tell it.
Love that. Amazing advice. I've been using more Google Docs, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't know. It's something new. I feel like the time it takes for Word to open on my computer, I'm like, I should just do something else. And somehow it's easier for me to get into a Google Doc. I don't know. So now I have my kids doing like their own little stories and their own little Google Docs. And then we sit around and I'll write onto our Google Docs.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. Oh, well, okay. Now you've given me something. I have to try that. I have to try Google.
Yeah. Because then it's any computer and you can always find it. And I mean, I guess, never mind. This is a silly conversation, but I don't know. I've really liked it. Psychologically, I don't know why. It makes me feel like it's less of a big deal or something.
That's the thing, though. It's whatever you have to do. It's whatever it takes to get you through the writing day. You know, you just have to get it down, and it's none of your business to judge it. Just get it down.
Yeah, just get it down. Easier said than done. But I'm glad you got it down. And thank you for coming on to talk about Almost Romance. Where can everybody find you?
I'm very easy to reach on Instagram at Nancy Balbirer. Also on my website, nancybalbirer.com. I answer everything. I may not do it right away if I'm super slammed, but I answer everything. And I love it. I've been getting so many fantastic messages and so much love. And I cannot tell you how much I love my readers. They're just, it just gives me so much joy to know that things are resonating, that I'm making connections. It's everything.
Aw, that's amazing. Amazing. It's all worth it.
It's all worth it.
All worth it.
All the pulling the hair out, the hiding from the inner critics. They can't find me. It's all worth it.
One of these days, I hope that you and Carmen and I can go out to lunch or something. And
to the Monkey Bar or the Breslin Bar. That's our places.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks so much, Nancy. It was so great to get to know you a little bit today. And
so great.
Thank you. It was fun.
So thank you so much, Zibby. Thanks so much.
Of course. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.